Hi, this is Holly with Presence Point, and welcome to the second in our series from 2 Peter chapter 1. I hope you joined us last time when we talked about verses 1 through 4 of this chapter, because it really reminded us that godly living is the result of cultivating the nature that God put within us when we gave our life to Him. When we demonstrated that faith, He put something new within us. So just as that human nature came with us by birth, now God has put within us a beautiful godly nature that we can activate and use to live for Him. And that's really what Peter's talking about here in this first chapter. In fact, he says in verse 3, He's given us all the power we need. The Father's given us all the power we need to live this godly life. And then in verses 5 through 7, he lists some of those characteristics. Are you ready? They're kind of heavy. Here we go. For this very reason, make every effort to supplement your faith with virtue, and virtue with knowledge, and knowledge with self-control, and self-control with steadfastness, and steadfastness with godliness, and godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. As one commentator said, God has acted and man must cooperate. God has acted and man must cooperate. Our faith in the Father has put this beautiful godly nature in us, but we've got to cooperate to know what that is and to be able to activate it within ourselves. And Peter said, these are 7 of the characteristics your faith should produce. So your faith, relationship with Jesus, godly nature put in you, now what do those traits look like? Today we'll talk about 2 of them, virtue and knowledge. So interestingly enough, when Peter talks here about virtue, he's talking about to what Greek philosophers thought of as the fulfillment of a thing. So when something fulfilled its purpose, it had virtue or it was excellent. And so moral excellence is how we often see this interpreted in some translations. For example, if a plot of land produces a wonderful crop, then that plot of land has great virtue or excellence. Or if a tool you're using does what it's supposed to do and does it well, which is always wonderful, right? It has virtue or excellence. Now what about us? If in fact we activate the nature God has put within us with our faith in Him, then we are in fact having virtue and moral excellence. So the reality is when we fulfill the purpose He has for us, when we as the thing are doing what He wants us to do, honor and glorify Him in all we do, live into our calling deeply as shepherds in the lives of those we lead, we have virtue, we have moral excellence. How sweet is that? Please know though, it's not automatic. It doesn't happen just because that nature is put in you. It takes work on your part, meaning not trying harder, but being in His Word, knowing what He says, listening to the Holy Spirit. So here we have faith, which is producing this beautiful nature within us, right, with our salvation. And as that faith is growing, because you know it's always tested, as it's growing, now we have added to it this virtue. We're supplementing it with this virtue. It's not like we have virtue and then knowledge. It is faith growing and developing. And while that's happening, now virtue is growing and developing. And while that's happening, knowledge is growing and developing. And how this word actually is interpreted, what it means is a practical knowledge or a discernment or living life successfully. Oh. So God has given us all we need to do these things. He's given us all we need once we produce the faith to have this moral excellence, to have this virtue, and then in fact to add to it this beautiful practical knowledge and discernment to live life successfully. So today, dear shepherd leader, the question for you is, are you cultivating so that you're seeing moral excellence? You're seeing you fulfilling what God's purpose is for you. Are you growing in this practical knowledge of Him? And are you growing in this way to discern what His will is and to be able to live life successfully because you're in His Word and you are listening to the Holy Spirit? I hope you'll take that question, think about it over the next week, and maybe make some notes of where you could learn and grow a bit in that area. So, join me next week. We'll talk about a couple more of these beautiful characteristics that God has already given us the ability to do. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful week.